Hey guys, what is going on? McMole2 here, welcome back to my channel. Today I am bringing you footage of the Imperial Troopers in Phase 4 of the Heroic HAAT raid. This video comes to me courtesy of Cotarvoid over in the Shatterpoint Guild. If you guys don't know, they have a pretty good YouTube channel, some nice videos. You guys should definitely go check them out. I'll throw a link to their YouTube channel down below. So thank you Cotarvoid for sending me this video footage. As you guys may know, the Imperial Troopers were recently reworked, so they're doing some pretty good damage now in the raids. They're also a little more viable in Arena now. You can do some pretty good placements there with them as well. As for usual with my raid tutorials, we will break down the mods on this team, and then we'll talk about the Omegas that are required and recommended, as well as any Zetas that are required to boost the damage for this team to really make it viable, and then we'll talk about the overall strategy. When it comes to the overall mods for this team, you really want to help boost their damage as much as possible, and that means throwing on crit chance and crit damage mods. As you can see as I'm cycling through these, everyone's basically having crit chance and crit damage mods on them. You can see the crit damage triangles on the characters. You want to help boost up the Snow Troopers crit chance as much as possible. I'll go into more detail about that when it comes to his AoE. And then you can see for Veers, he has speed set on him. This is so that Veers can reach at least 230 speed. If you can find a good set of mods for Veers to get him up to 230 speed without having to use a speed mod set, by all means go ahead and throw that on him. If you can get crit chance and crit damage mods that can do that, definitely go for those over speed. But you do need to get Veers up to at least 230 speed so you can use his AoE at a pretty regular basis. And then helping to get Stormtrooper to a certain speed is really going to help make sure that his taunt is going to be there for the buffs so that the Firestorm does not kill all of your Imperial Troopers at the end of each topple. So that is pretty much it for the mods. Just basically throw crit chance, crit damage on them, help boost their damage, make sure Veers gets up to at least 230 speed, and keep Stormtrooper up to a reasonable speed so he can use his taunts whenever needed for the tank so it comes out of topple and doesn't kill your entire team. Now, when it comes to the required Omegas for this team, you have 4 of them. You have the Omega for Veers and his leadership, so that all Imperial Troopers gain 4% bonus offense and 10% turn meter every time they gain a buff. You have the Omega on Death Troopers Terminate, so that if there are any defeated enemies, the death mark is inflicted on this attack and it cannot be resisted. And then you have the Snow Trooper AoE, so that every time it scores a critical hit, the cooldown on this ability is reduced by 1. And then the Stormtrooper Basic, where it exposes the target if the target dodges or does not get critically hit with this attack. These 4 abilities are basically required to really boost your damage overall. The turn meter gain from the Veers leadership really going to help make your troopers move faster, especially when combined with the unique Zeta. The death mark from Death Troopers Terminate really going to help you knock down the turrets even faster. The Snow Trooper AoE, it already does a lot of damage, and if you can constantly spam that AoE, it's really going to do a lot of damage, really knock down the turrets really quickly and help get clean topples, as well as knock down the B2 droids. And then the exposed for Stormtrooper Basic, that's another 25% bonus damage to the target when it's exposed. That's really going to help stack up damage too, really going to help make those topples a lot easier. For recommended Omegas, you have the Veers AoE, where it does additional 15% ability block chance, and then you have the basic for Veers as well, where it increases the speed up chance whenever he uses his basic attack to 100%, so he's always going to be applying speed up to a random Imperial Trooper ally. You have the Snow Trooper basic, has another plus 15% ability block chance, and then his unique gives another 5% turn meter gain to Snow Trooper and half that to other Empire allies. And then you have the basic for Magma Trooper, where it increases the chance for the secondary attack to 100%, so he's always going to be doing a second hit whenever he uses his basic, and then his unique gives him another 5% tenacity, and then another 10% turn meter gain every time he resists a debuff. So getting these ones in is going to help round out your damage, add a little bit more, also help kind of block out the B2s from doing their AoE dispels. So this is more kind of help to optimize and build up your damage. It's not required to get the top tier damage, but it's really going to help boost your damage overall. When it comes to Zetas for this team, there's only one you actually have to use, and it's required. It's the Zeta on Veers' unique, so that every time an enemy is defeated, all Imperial Trooper allies regenerate 10% protection. They have a 100% chance of getting offense up, and then they have a 100% chance of gaining 50% turn meter whenever those enemies are defeated. So that is what causes your team to really become the next level, is that Zeta really boosts the damage, gives more turn meter, gives that offense up, and of course with the leadership, with the offense up, that's more turn meter overall for your team. So really that just causes your team to really start accelerating in their kills once you start knocking off one of the enemies. And that is why the Zeta is required, because without the Zeta, you will get nowhere near the scores that you are seeing with Imperial Troopers overall. The other two Zetas on this team, Stormtrooper with his unique, and same with Death Trooper on their unique, you do not want to use them. The Death Trooper unique Zeta is for synergies with Krennic, and the Stormtrooper Zeta only gives him bonus offense whenever he has defeated Empire allies around him. You don't want to use that. That's just really useless for this team. You should not Zeta those abilities at all. One interesting thing about your Imperial Troopers is that their uniques each give them bonuses they share with all Imperial Trooper allies, and then the 5 that you're using in this team, Veers, his unique gives 15% crit chance to all Imperial Troopers, Death Trooper gives 10% health steal, Stormtrooper gives plus 30% defense, Magma Trooper gives another 30% tenacity, and then Snow Trooper gives another 20% crit damage to all Imperial Trooper allies. And one really interesting thing to note here is that you actually don't need a leadership ability to make it so that they share these synergies. So CG, if you're listening to this is how you should have built up Phoenix in the first place. Just saying. This is the way Phoenix synergy should have been in the first place. You didn't have to use a leader to share their abilities with each other. But anyways, one thing that we should know here is that Imperial Troopers are basically a combination of Phoenix Squad and clones now, where you have the synergies with the uniques, and then you have the Clone Trooper calling in to assist on the Veers leadership ability. And it's just kind of a nice hybrid between the two. And that's what makes them so much better now, is this whole synergy with each other, and then this massive call to assist on the Veers leadership really does a nice spike of damage there. So all these synergies really combine together, and that's part of what makes these Imperial Troopers so good, is just this big damage boost now, and what they bring to the table with each other, and how the more of them you have in a single team, the more powerful overall they make each other. When it comes to the overall strategy for this team, the one thing it should be noted is that it is far more important to topple the tank than it is to knock out the two B2 droids on the side. And that is because as soon as you start killing off those turrets, thanks to the Veers unique and the leadership and all the buffs going out between the team and the unique for Snow Trooper, it starts to snowball, and your troopers start to gain a lot more turn meter, they gain offense up, they start to go a lot faster, and they hit harder, and that's what causes it to start really building up as you knock out the turrets, is you can quickly build up that damage and topple a tank pretty quickly. It's going to look a little close at first because they're not gaining a lot of turn meter at the beginning, but once you start knocking out those turrets and gaining those buffs and that bonus turn meter, things will start to really build up, and you'll be able to topple the tank really quickly. The AoE for Veers, you should save it for when the tank is toppled, but if you have to use it to force the topple in time, so you can gain the Morale 2 bonus and the Morale 1 bonus, and also topple before the tank can move that first time, use that AoE. If you have to use that AoE to topple the tank, go ahead and use it. It's much better to get that tank toppled all in one move rather than missing out on that additional topple, and that's going to hurt your damage more. So make sure that you use that AoE to topple the tank if you need to. And then when the tank is toppled, you can use that Snow Trooper AoE really quickly, because each critical hit scored with the AoE will reduce the cooldown of the ability by 1, and by then you should have the 2 B2s still up. You may not, but if you do, you can go ahead and spam that Snow Trooper AoE, and it will do a good 30k thanks to that Morale 1 bonus, where now once the tank is toppled, your troopers have the 100% armor penetration. So Snow Trooper is going to hit really hard in the AoE, and he's really going to build up the damage there. And of course with critical hits, the cooldown's reduced by 1 per critical hit. So if you can hit both B2s and the tank with critical hit, it's automatically off cooldown again in his next turn. So getting that in is going to be really important there. And then with the ability blocks from Snow Trooper and Veers AoE, it's really nice to have those on the B2 so that they don't do the dispel on their AoE and knock off that offense up, because if that gets dispelled off your troopers, it's really going to hurt their damage overall. So if you can get those ability blocks in, that's really nice to have, but don't focus ability blocks on the B2s just so you can avoid those dispels. It's still much better to just go ahead and focus down the tank first and then focus on the B2s. And then the Death Mark Terminate for Death Trooper, always use that on one of the turrets so you can go ahead and knock out that turret really quickly. It should be noted that the Death Mark applies a force taunt on the target, and you're probably asking by now, why isn't he using Death Mark when the tank is toppled? The Death Mark from Death Trooper lasts for 2 turns. When the tank comes up, it automatically spends 1 turn, but that Death Mark is still there. So if you use the Death Mark on the tank, which you will see at the very end of the video, the tank comes back up with Death Mark still on it. And now you can't attack the turrets around the tank. You still have to focus on that tank, and that's really going to hurt your damage, because then you're going to miss out on topple, and then you're going to be getting focus fired by the B2s, and their basics reduce turn meter. You're going to get dispelled from their AoE. Those turrets are really going to start doing damage to you. They also dispel, and the big turret up top is going to do massive damage to an unbuffed target. So making sure that you don't use Death Mark during topples is paramount. You can only use it on turrets to help knock it down quicker, and that's really nice to have. Plus, with the exposed from Stormtrooper and his exposed on his Omega, that's really going to help knock down these turrets really quickly. So overall, knock down the turrets first, then knock down the B2s. Use AoE from Snowtrooper to really help knock everything down at once. Getting ability blocks on the B2s is nice, but is by no means required. So focus on getting the turrets down first, and only ability block the B2s if you have the ability to, if you know you're going to be able to knock down the tank in a timely manner. And then, of course, with all the buffs that all these characters are gaining, each buff under the Veers lead that your Imperial Troopers gain gives them another 10% turn meter. So they're getting 10% turn meter from the offense up every time an enemy is defeated. They're getting turn meter from the speed up buffs from Veers on his basic. Snowtrooper, his unique, gives him a lot of turn meter when an enemy is defeated, and then he shares half of that with other Empire allies around him. So you're getting a lot of turn meter and a lot of offense boosts in a really short manner, and that just causes your snowball effect overall. So that is pretty much it for the strategy. Feel free to ask any questions down below. I'll do my best to answer them. I'm not the utmost expert at this, but I've been throwing millions of questions at Kaketia and just trying to figure out how this team works overall so I can really learn about it and be able to answer people's questions about it. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching. Feel free to like and share this video. Subscribe to my channel for more content in the future. I'll finish letting this video play out so you guys can see how the rest of the fight goes. Also, keep an eye on my channel this weekend. I've got a video coming out that shows Gar Saxon and Pow in the Kenobi Sync team in Phase 1. Does 1.3 million damage. That's not the highest that team has done. You've seen people do 1.7 million with it, with those 2 characters in there. So yeah, I'll talk about all about that team and why Pow really makes that team do so much better when combined with Saxon. But anyways, guys, thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you guys later.